Well, we all know the world's screwed up, right? You can feel that something's wrong. You can feel that the story you've been told is wrong. But it's almost like none of us know what's actually going on. And we don't know who to trust, and that actually makes our anxiety worse and makes us more prone to latch out at people who have certainty and feel confident and feel strong. And that's why the narcissists and the sociopaths are able to gain power, because they just take advantage of that and they don't care.
And so how do we begin to reclaim our knowing? How do we reclaim kind of our sovereignty as beings?
The first thing is we have to recognize that what we think we know is actually the problem. There's so much tendency, and our education system breeds this into us. You have to be right, and there has to be an answer. Well, what if you're not right? Or what if there isn't an answer? Then what? You know, it's like if there's a multiple choice question, it's A, B, C, or D. What if there isn't an A, B, C, or D? So this is a really fundamental issue, because the problems we're dealing with, because they're unprecedented in history, they don't have solutions. They have not been solved yet. But we're told that the only thing that's real and acceptable is knowledge that is true and correct. So I have to know. And it's not I have to know because I have this mission to serve the truth of knowing. No, it's much more superficial than that. I have to know because the social norms of those around me tell me that I will be shameful and humiliated, that I'm a bad person if I don't know. So if I don't know, I have to save face by pretending to know. And the more uncomfortable I am with being insecure when I don't know, the more forcefully I have to project a sense of knowing. And so our place of giving up power is in feeling like we need to show other people a validated sense of what they think we should do, without ever stepping back to inquire about what should we do when we don't already have an answer. We don't hold the space for that. We don't honor it and appreciate it or value it as a society. And we don't encourage or celebrate it. We don't reward it as a society. So all of the incentives are toward projecting confidence and knowing, even when we don't, and shaming and humiliating and punishing if we don't know. And then we end up with these battles of my beliefs versus your beliefs, instead of a humble inquiry into the possibility that none of us know. And worse still, that not knowing may be really scary. The thing that I think is fundamental to what's going on in the world today, and I keep alluding to it, is, in different ways, I keep alluding to it, is how the way things are changing is something we're not prepared for. And we're told we're supposed to be prepared, or someone over there is prepared. Those experts over there will take care of it. And what if there is no one who's going to come and save us? What if it is up to us? And we have been behaving like children, maybe behaving like adolescents, and we need to grow up. And this is the time where some are going to grow up, and others are going to be crushed and destroyed by this change process. You know, adolescence is inherently dangerous. You have things like teenage boys engaging in risky behavior, and the death rate is higher. That going from adolescence to adulthood is dangerous. Teenagers will experiment with deep ideas and experiment with their identity in deep ways because so many other things are changing that changing those beliefs is just par for the course. But sometimes people go a little crazy. Sometimes people become unhinged. And whether it's because they're seeking psychedelic experiences and they overdose, or walk in front of a train when they're on LSD or whatever, where they're experimenting in a way where they actually lose sight of reality and put themselves into a pathway to harm, that just the risk is higher during that period. And so we don't have safe spaces for it in the world today. Whereas in rites of initiation for adolescents, that are tried and true cultural traditions. They create containers around it to let that danger exist, but have ways of helping people through it so it doesn't destroy them. But what's happening in the world today is that we're going through this initiation without that container of tradition and practice to help the dangerous thing happen, to let the dangerous thing happen in a way that's mitigated. So we're experiencing real, life-threatening danger without cultural traditions and community supports to help us through it. So right now there are over 7 billion people on Earth. The United Nations, the people who do the population research project we're going to get to 9 billion around 2050 and then level off. Well, they're not really accounting for things like peak oil or the collapse of financial bubbles or runaway global warming effects or other things that, genocidal wars that break out, things that could reduce the population. But we're going through a time where a number of things are happening that create a kind of collapse dynamic that's likely to happen. So those of us who are going to live through the next 50 years are likely to experience a lot of death. And some of us will die as part of the process. And there is no container, no cultural practice and community to hold the harms of living through that kind of a crisis. So the danger of adolescence and going through adolescence to adulthood is happening on a scale unprecedented in history, with most of our cultural systems decontextualized and pulled away. And so we're frantic. And there's a word for this that the architect Jason McLennan uses in a book he wrote about 5 years ago. It's a German word, which I'll probably pronounce wrong. It's Zugenrucha, which is the restlessness of a migratory species just before it begins a migration. So if these birds that are about to start their migration for the year, they start picking at each other, they start, running they're flapping their wings, they get restless, and then they all take off and they fly from one place to another that's far away. Well, humans, we forget this because of our urban environments, humans are a migratory species. Most of our history is in semi-nomadic small tribal communities that move across the landscape with the changing seasons or with the movement of animals we depend upon. So we're a migratory species, and we're about to go through a migratory process. And so we all have this restlessness, this Zugenrucha, and we don't know that we have it, and we don't know that that feeling is normal. For a migratory animal, it's like you don't change until you feel uncomfortable with the status quo. Well, we're in a time where we're increasingly uncomfortable with the status quo. We're about to go through a migration. It's more like an exodus kind of migration process. We don't know where we're going, and we have no one to guide us. And we have no one to guide us for a very good reason, because no one's ever done this before. And instead of forgiving ourselves for that, we blame each other, and we look for people to blame. And so the spiritual traditions that have known and projected something like this in their narratives for a long time, for thousands of years, we have this need for remembering of those wisdom traditions, because most of us don't know them. But we also have to keep in mind that the remembering is about things in the past, and this thing we're going through has never happened before. It's really important because, in philosophy there are two branches, epistemology and ontology. Epistemology is the study of knowledge. Ontology is the study of what is real. And we have all of these assumptions in our culture that tell us what's real and what is known. Well, what we're told is real is mostly partial stories that are not completely true. And what is known is less than what is. So a lot of the things happening in the world, we don't know. And so it's not just that I don't know, it's that the experts don't know. Now, does that mean that we cast all science out and call it bullshit? No, we don't. We just recognize that there's a need for humility. And also we recognize that whatever sense of completeness we have about our knowledge is a way of keeping ourselves from learning what's happening. And so we don't update our understandings. We don't ask questions. And then we stay in this place of confusion, this place of Zugenrucha, this restlessness, that gets increasingly frantic because there's real danger. We don't know where to go. We don't know which flock we're going to fly with. We don't know if there is a right flock, let alone the one that we're in. And we have lots of bad guys around us that we can point fingers at, sometimes for legitimate reasons and other times not. And so it's understandable in a situation like this, that there will be more violence, there will be more partitioning of people into identities and radicalizing themselves into those identities, that there will be more of a mindset of scarcity and insecurity and fear, that there will be rising anxiety, and all of these things will mean less critical thinking, less introspection, less asking of questions, meaning less learning. So during the very time when more learning is needed, the context is driving us away from learning.